It's been nearly 130 years. More precisely, it was 1883 when the Democrats last held a supermajority in Sacramento. Now, California Democrats say that's about to change. But that's not the only part of Tuesday's election making history. San Diego elected Shirley Weber, an African-American, to the Assembly, and its first Latino, Juan Vargas, to Congress. Here to talk about what's behind these political shifts and what kind of impact they may have is UT San Diego's political editor, Michael Smolens, and political reporter, Chris Cadelago. Thank you both for being here today and talking with us.
Thanks for having us.
First question, Michael, for you. What does it mean for Democrats to have this supermajority?
Well, what they will have, it looks like, is a two-thirds majority in both houses of the legislature, the Assembly and Senate. And what that basically means, they don't need the Republicans to do anything, to pass taxes, to put certain issues on the ballot, to pass a constitutional amendment. They need a two-thirds vote. And in the past, just a couple Republicans could stop that from happening. And that was usually the dynamic that led to the gridlock over the budget. Now they, in theory, have a free rein. But I think people need to be cautious about that. The governor said, look, we're not going to raise any taxes unless we put them on the ballot. And this notion that the Democratic supermajority would override the governor, I don't think that's going to happen because they don't have any votes to spare. He will be able to get some votes to go his way. He's gained great power with the passage of Proposition 30.
Yes, I heard they're going to proceed with, quote, respect and you know, basically in a respectful manner. That's what they said. Chris, what about explain a little bit about this simple majority versus the supermajority, especially when it comes to the, Proposition 13 and how that changed things.
Sure, yeah. The simple majority basically allowed the Republicans with 1, 2, 3 additional people who would not fall in line to block a lot of these things from moving forward in the legislature. Now, having a supermajority, they don't need the support of any of these Republicans. And it's somewhat significant. As Michael noted, they've been able to pick off Republicans here or there to get some deals done. Most recently with the governor's Prop 30, they weren't able to do it, so that's a significant point to make. But in the past, they've been able to have some of these Republicans break either their no tax pledge or and come in line and sort of make a deal with them. So that's sort of a thing to note. This is very significant, but there are some sort of things to note here. One other one is there are 2 state senators who were actually elected to Congress. So it may be several months, it may be some time until they're able to get the full number of members. I believe it's 27 that they need. That was my
next question, absolutely. So we don't have it yet, correct?
Right. That's true. And
talking about budget time or close to the summer break is when that they expect to have those seats filled. So it will be a little bit. But they can certainly start planning.
Absolutely. They can plan for that. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about the new faces in the state legislature that are from San Diego, especially about Dr. Shirley Weber.
Dr. Weber was president of the school board here, so she's a very familiar face. She's been a mayoral appointee. She's a professor here at the college. And she's got a very interesting family background, moved to California, I think, at the age of 3. She was the daughter of sharecroppers from Hope, Arkansas. And she's been in education for a long time, so I could see that being sort of her issue when she gets up to Sacramento. Now there's obviously new rules in place, so we may be getting used to Dr. Shirley Weber for possibly 12 years, I guess, in the Assembly. So we'll see. I mean, she is somebody, she's the first African-American, south of L.A. elected. So there's certainly a lot of history being made in this election. We know President Obama for winning, a Democrat president winning San Diego County now twice in a row. That hasn't happened since Franklin Roosevelt. So there's a lot of history being made.
Right, and speaking about her race, so she got 60% of the vote. When I spoke to her on Election Day, she said only 10% of her district is African American. So this wasn't just based on we need to put some representation.
Right, and I think that, as Chris pointed out, Shirley Weber has a history in this region. People know of her from her activities throughout the community, certainly on the school board in the past. So sometimes we tend to make a little bit too much of an issue out of the ethnic aspect and the partisan breakdown, when in a lot of cases other factors are in play. And she's obviously, voters overwhelmingly agreed she's a qualified candidate beyond all those other aspects.
Let's talk about an interesting race when it comes to partisan partisanship. District 76, that it was called experimental, I think, as far as the top two primary system. Michael, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, Chris is a little more familiar.
Okay.
I might toss it to him.
Yeah, so this is a race with the new top two primary, which largely championed by our own San Diego County's own Steve Peace. Those were passed, we saw this for the first time in June, where two folks from the same party, either Republicans or Democrats, could advance into the general election, whereas before the two top vote getters from either party. This year we saw Sherry Hodges and Rocky Chavez, who is both of them are Republicans. He's a little more moderate. He's supported by more moderate causes. We saw sort of a late $500,000 contribution come in for him from a group that supports moderates. And what he did that I think a lot of people thought was smart, frankly, was he targeted a lot of Democratic voters and a lot of independent voters with his mail, with his radio ads. And Sherry was looking a lot more to appeal to the Republican base. And I think that this is a sort of an example for folks who are in a top two race, obviously depending on the district, that you really do need to reach out to more than one party to in a inter-party election in order to attract enough voters. You need that 50+1 to win.
And taking it to the next level, what they're hoping the goal was is that you would get more moderate people elected to the legislature that would be more prone to compromise, whereas we know they've been very balkanized in a partisan way. We'll see if this happens with Rocky Chavez and a few others. It may take a while for that top two and the redistricting to kind of filter all the way through for a couple elections to see if we get a more moderate legislature. It's still a very polarized place. There's no question about it, two-thirds or not.
Do you think Rocky won, either one of you, do you think he won because he was more moderate? You had two Republican candidates. You had the extreme. He was more moderate. In Republican areas, are people leaning toward more moderate?
I would say one of the things he really had going for him was he was on the Oceanside City Council. Sherry Hodges had been sort of a community activist. She had been on a smaller school board up there. So just like in the case of Dr. Weber, Rocky was quite a bit more well-known. He was sort of a temporary on the State Veterans Committee. He was on there for quite a while. Camp Pendleton, we know, is in the district, so that was something that worked for him. He had the endorsement of Governor Pete Wilson, who came out and helped him and wrote some letters. So he was sort of, if you want to use the term, an establishment candidate in that district. That was sort of him. So he had a lot of things going for him.
I think one other thing also that while I said let's not make too much out of the ethnic background, he is Latino, and we know that the Latino turnout throughout the country and region was really up. I don't know about that specific district, but certainly you would think that would help him in this particular race as well.
Absolutely, certainly national. That was something, not only were there more Latinos voting, more actually registered, so it was a double whammy on that. Michael, let's get back to the supermajority. How are Republicans and conservative groups like the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, for example, kind of responding to this new normal, at the state legislature?
Well, it's sort of like Armageddon has struck to some people. I think it was John Kupal, the Howard Jarvis leader, talked about, is this going to turn into a banana republic? We'll have to see. Right now, the Democrats are talking the right game. They're saying, look, we're going to have restraint. We're going to be respectful of this. We're not just going to open the floodgates to taxes. We just passed a $6 billion a year tax issue on the ballot with Proposition 30. And the governor, he's going to be concerned about governing and his legacy, not just filtering through a lot of taxes. So he will, I think, keep a look at them. One of the things they want to do is he wants to improve the business climate, and they also want to look at a broader tax reform. The California tax system is broken, and that's why we have such swings in revenue up and down, and that will take a lot of doing. And to just start passing taxes is not going to be conducive to getting that done, and also probably won't help the Democrats in 2 years. We've had people, in our local delegation saying, we will be a supermajority for 2 years if we start passing a lot of taxes.
Just for 2 years on that one. Chris, let me ask you this. What do you think is behind the Democratic surge here in San Diego and in the state?
There are several factors here. Obviously, we talked about demographics. There was some folks from Orange County, actually the Orange County Lincoln Club, who put forward what was for Democrats and labor unions a very unpopular ballot initiative, Proposition 32, which would have banned paycheck deduction from both unions and corporations, but we know it would have severely impacted unions quite a bit more. And that was certainly something that folks on both sides of the aisle, activists on both sides, are saying, helped really drive out folks and helped drive up the number of volunteers on the Democratic side. And we saw a combination of both the Labor Council here, Lorena Gonzalez, and the Democratic Party, Jess Durfee, work together sort of on the northern side of the 8, on the southern side of the 8, to get as many people riled up and as many people out to the polls as they could. We know that the election day turnout was particularly big. I think we're hearing that now from the registrar,
right.
and that is the time with the combination of President Obama on the ballot, a more diverse population, more Democrats in the city, more Democrats in the county. All those things sort of combine to help them, as well as sort of some more moderate candidates on the ballot.
One thing also, just the being able to register online was a huge. Democrats really took advantage of that statewide and in San Diego County. So there were a lot of things working for them, but they took advantage. They really mobilized.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.